And then let's start in a seated position. We'll ground first, and then we'll start to get into our shapes. So I'll scooch back to my mat. And you can come into whatever a comfortable seat means for you this morning, whatever a comfortable seat looks like for you this morning. An opportunity, an option to place your hands on either your thighs or down towards your knees, palms facing down. Here in Maine, we've been getting a lot of rain, which is greatly appreciated and needed. And it also kind of, watching the rain yesterday, this quality of just downward energy, the momentum down, the earth finally like getting saturated, kind of a heaviness, but not in a weightful heaviness. It felt like this heaviness of, like just dropping down, feeling this almost relief from having some more rain, letting the earth start to kind of revitalize itself. So I really wanted to bring that into class today, this idea of dropping in, letting go, letting yourself get heavy, and through that heaviness, actually finding a little bit of lightness. So as always, really working with those opposites, and by letting go and letting yourself ground, is there also space to kind of let go, release, and open up and start to feel a little bit lighter as we start to expand. So playing around with those qualities, playing around with those ideas this morning throughout your practice, if that resonates with you. And as always, if there's something else you're already working with, bringing that into your practice this morning and cultivating those qualities. So whatever it is most supportive for you as we move. And so with that in mind, starting to bring in the flow of your breath. As you inhale, pulling your breath up from the base of your belly, all the way up through your torso, into your heart, into your lungs, into your shoulders. And then maybe with a rain-like quality, letting everything soften down, sprinkle down, and drop down all the way down to your belly. And taking that at your own pace, feeling a rise and an expansion as you breathe in. And a soft letting go and a dropping down as you breathe out. And take a few more slow and steady breaths at your own pace, connecting in with your physical body, your breath body. And perhaps noticing any parts of you that need a little extra TLC and attention this morning. And move through 3 more cycles of breath here. When you've completed your 3rd exhale, hands can stay as they are. You might choose to take your hands towards your heart center, maybe onto your heart. And connect in with whatever anchor you'd like for today's practice, bringing you back into your intention, maybe that downward quality, that letting go. And take another deep breath in through your nose. And option to let it go with a sigh. Release your hands back down towards your legs if they're lifted. Option to open your eyes gently. And we'll start with a supported child's pose. So I'm going to bring my bolster underneath me, take my knees a little bit wider and toes together. One thing that might be nice is to take a blanket, roll up your blanket a little bit thicker and place it behind your legs, so in between your calves and the backs of your thighs. And then I'm going to pull my bolster in a little bit closer to me so that I can rest down. And you can place one cheek on the mat or your forehead to the mat. If you don't have a bolster or couch cushions, you can also take your blocks, setting your blocks up maybe on the medium height and coming to bring your blocks underneath. I kind of bring it underneath my torso and onto my forehead. So you can play around with what you'd like to set up underneath you, and maybe you don't want anything underneath you, and that's totally fine too. And so as you take the time to set up your foundation, take a moment or two to check in once you land. And it might be that you land and you realize that certain parts of you are not comfortable. And if that's the case, is it a discomfort that's sustainable that you can breathe through, or is it discomfort that might feel injurious? And if it's injurious, please take the time to adjust. And I'm going to keep my forehead down so that you can hear, but again, you can place one cheek or the other onto whatever's beneath you. And start to cultivate that slow and steady breath again. And as your breath continues to move through your body, and perhaps on the exhale, you explore dropping in a little deeper and dropping down to what's beneath you. And as you drop down on your inhale, perhaps feeling how the back of your body expands and lifts with the breath in as you rise slightly. And so playing around with these sensations as you exhale, allowing yourself to sink in. And maintaining that as you inhale, allowing yourself to expand out. If you have one cheek onto support beneath you, option to slowly come to center before turning for your opposite cheek to find support. If you're on your forehead, you might choose to stay there as well. Check in with your physical body as you move through your breath, noticing if any tension may have crept in. So coming back to the offering of grounding down, releasing. And as you inhale, expanding and rising. Start to move through your final 3 cycles of breath here. If you have one cheek to support beneath you, softly begin to bring your neck to a neutral position with your forehead down. And take a moment or two here, and when you feel ready, you can slide your hands underneath your shoulders. Palms will connect down to what's beneath you. And gently start to press yourself up. And take your time to get there. You can adjust so that your shoulders stack over your wrists. Slowly walk your knees back so your knees will stack more or less underneath your hips. And from a tabletop position, you might choose to stay at neutral. If it feels better to find movement, perhaps you start to take a gentle arch as you reach forward and back. And perhaps a gentle round as you press down to rise up. There might be other movement, perhaps some circular motions or some side to side rocks that your body is craving. And if that's the case, please honor that as well. And take another breath or two, either in your stillness or your movement. And come back to a neutral tabletop. If you have anything beneath you, but the backs of your legs, you can slide that off to the side. Either sweep your feet or crisscross your feet, and we'll all transition onto sits bones. So option now to take your blanket. I'm going to refold mine so it's more the traditional fold to sit down on. You can come to sit onto something underneath you. And I'm going to leave my bolster in front of me as we start to move towards caterpillar. So that means my legs are going to be a little bit wider. You might choose to remove anything and bring your legs more hip width distance in front of you. You might take a block or 2 or 3 and prep that for underneath your forehead. And so again, taking your time to settle in, to set up, set those roots, and then soften through your legs if you notice that your legs begin to activate. And when you're ready, start to fold yourself forward. Maybe you pause a little bit en route. And I'm actually going to bring my blocks underneath my bolster to prop it up even higher. So, right, as we flow, as we go, we might notice that we need to make adjustments. And so as you settle into your shape, again, forehead might come down if you're bringing your head onto something beneath you. You might do one cheek or the other. Take your time to set up as you fold forward. And then as you find your space, take a deep breath in through your nose. And either a breath out through your mouth or a deep breath out through your nose. Bringing the cycle of your breath all the way from the soles of your feet, up the backs of your legs, up your lower, middle, upper back. And as you exhale, letting your breath move out through the crown of your head, almost like water as it drops back down into the earth beneath you. And steady into this cycle, steady into this flow as you breathe in. And drop everything back down as you breathe out. And check in with yourself if there's any adjustments that need to be made. Please feel free to do so. You might choose to stay exactly as you are. Full breath in through your nose. And settle back into your anchor as you exhale. And 3 more like this. At the base of your third exhale, gently turn your palms once more down to the ground if they're not there already. Very slowly take your time to lift up as you start to stack your vertebrae, lift your torso. Eventually, you'll rise to a tall seat. You can lift the crown of your head up. Maybe you even imagine you can draw back slightly on your nose. Take a full breath in here. And a full breath out. One more at neutral. If you have your bolster and your blocks, you can go ahead, set those off to the side when you're ready. I'm going to keep my blocks accessible, so you can keep your blocks if you'd like within reach as we start to move in to the next portion in just a moment. And bend into both of your knees. Bring your feet about hip width distance. Palms can rest down by your sides. Inhale as you lift up your heart. Stay here at neutral or start to take a soft windshield wiper, dropping your knees so one direction and the other. And then your gaze can stay forward, or you might shift your gaze from one side to the other. And slowly bring your knees back to center. Let your knees drop out wide, preparing for butterfly. So you can bring your blocks underneath your legs if you'd like. You might stack the blocks up again for your forehead. Maybe there's another configuration that you know and love in your own body and you want to create that. And so once you have your lower body in place, start to again fold forward with your upper body. Hands can stay on your feet. You might reach your arms out. Maybe you flip your palms up and then softly let your head drop down. Nice. Once you find yourself in this new shape, noticing the subtle differences, right? Keeping that more rounded quality in your torso, in your spine, but noticing how the subtle shift in your lower body might change the experience. And so checking in here, seeing where in your body you'd like to send your breath. And as you bring an awareness into what is needed, tending to what is needed, and then perhaps allowing yourself to drop in and settle in. Deep breath in. And a deep breath out. Allow yourself to make any adjustments that you'd like. And that might mean deepening your shape. That might mean coming up and out. That might mean staying exactly as you are. And begin to move into your 3 cycles of breath here. If your palms are up, again, turn your palms down. Connect your hands down and take the slow journey all the way back up towards a tall seat. Legs will stay as they are as you start to lift the crown of your head. Again, 2 breaths for the neutral spine. Eyes can be closed or softening your gaze forward. Use your hands as you draw your knees back into a neutral position. Re-extend your legs. So before we did extended legs and then a bent knee windshield wiper. Now we're going to go from bent knees to extended legs. Palms can come by your side again and take your windshield wiper, this time from your feet. So feet rock side to side, letting the movement translate up through your legs all the way up into your hips. Nice. And gently bring your feet back towards center. Rebend into your knees, crisscross or sweep your feet to the side. And once more, we'll meet on hands and knees. Option to bring a blanket underneath your knees for support. We are going to do a little knee down work today, so just a heads up. And this time, once you find your tabletop, find your foundation. And again, take a drop as you reach forward and back, moving towards cow. And this time, as you exhale, perhaps there's a little more activation as you press down and round into your spine towards cat. We'll take 2 more, starting to activate a little more deeply as you inhale, reach forward and back. As you exhale, press down as you round. 1 more, inhale, forward and back. Exhale as you round. Come back to a neutral spine. Option to walk your blocks underneath your hands. I'm going to take my blocks on the highest height. And then walk your left shin in slightly so you can step your right foot forward. Yes, okay. And then kind of play around with how far forward you want your hands, enough that you can start to comfortably and safely drop your hip points down a little bit. So we're going to start to get into the front of that left hip. With your palms on your block, see if you can drop down enough so it's comfortable. Continue to press down into your front right foot. Maybe you pretend you can draw your right foot back a little bit and see how that activation of the downward quality can find a little more space in your hips. And then you might choose to keep your gaze down, breathing into the back of your neck. You might choose to start to lift your gaze up. And if you're taking either version, notice how that might translate into your spine, into your hips. Take a deep breath here. And out. Tuck your back left toes. Start to send your hips back. As you send your hips back, start to extend your right leg, right toes draw towards you. So now you're reaching your hips back just as much as you're reaching your hands forward. Yes. And we're going to start to flow through that. So you can bend into your front right knee, sole of your foot to the floor, hips drop down, gaze stays down, or gaze starts to shift up. On an exhale, start to send your hips back nice and slow as you extend your right leg, draw your right toes back, maybe your gaze shifts down. So you can take this at your pace if you'd like. On the inhale, bend into your front knee. Steady drop down, right? So there's a mindfulness there. There's a quality of connectedness in the drop. And then exhale as you send your hips back, starting to find some length. And take 2 more here. Use your whole inhale to drop down, lift up. Use your whole exhale as you let go to lengthen. Nice. All right, this time, drop your right foot down to the ground, rebend your knee, keep your hips a little higher. Start to activate your back left leg enough that you can lift your back knee up. So you're in a low runner's lunge on your blocks. Walk your blocks over to the left, pivot on your toes. So we'll move towards a wide leg forward fold. Adjust your feet so that heels are back, toes are forward. Tailbone back, crown reaches forward. So it's almost like you're taking a half lift. Stay here, or maybe you drop your blocks down as you bring your hands down and start to fold your torso forward. Start to activate your quadriceps in order to find some space in the back of your legs. And you might rock forward and back on your feet, just noticing where the weight has landed and finding a space that feels like you're using your whole foot on the left and right side to ground down. Hands can walk back a little closer towards lining up with your toes. Maybe you grab your ankles, maybe you actually grab your toes or keep your hands on the blocks or the floor. Deep breath in. And out. And 2 more wherever you landed.
If you've got a bind onto your legs, release your bind, take your blocks, walk your hands back underneath your shoulders. Option to flip back onto the highest height, so you're coming up a bit higher. Tailbone back, crown forward. Pivot back to the front of your mat, low runner's lunge. Take your time to adjust your stance here. And then take your back foot, step it all the way forward, Uttanasana, hands on blocks or hands on the floor. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, palms to your blocks or the floor. Step your right foot all the way back. Drop your right knee. Untuck your toes to start. And again, you can kind of wiggle your left foot forward, wiggle your hands forward, and start to drop down into your hip points. Again, it's an active drop, so left foot will press down. Maybe you pull it back a little bit. Gaze can move down towards the floor. You might choose to lift your gaze up. Wherever you landed, take a deep breath in. And out. Nice, twice more here. Tuck your back left toes, right toes, there we go. Tuck your back right toes. As you inhale, start to look up slightly. Here we go. As you exhale, start to extend your left leg, draw your left toes back to any point. So you've got that nice long length. Nice. And then we'll take the breath one movement. So as you drop your left toes down, start to drop your hips down. Inhale as you lift up. And then full exhale, send your hips back, start to extend your leg, draw your left toes forward. Take it at your pace. Inhale to connect down, rise up. Exhale to let go as you find some space, dropping back. All right, 2 more. Exhale back. Last one, inhale to ground. Exhale back. Return to your left foot. Keep your hips a little bit higher. Activate your back right leg as you extend your right knee, low runner's lunge. Nice. With your blocks this time, we're going to take it to the right. So pivot to the right. Again, adjust your feet so your toes are forward, heels are back. This time, option to set your blocks down and come onto your fingertips, or you can stay on your blocks. Turn your toes out slightly, heels slightly in. And then bend into your left knee as you send your hips a little to the left. Bend into your right knee as you send your hips to the right. Yes. And again, take this at your pace. You might go a little bit faster or slower. The invitation is to go slow enough to notice what's happening, right? If you notice that you start to move into maybe habitual movement, and maybe you stay when you find that bend long enough to breathe into what's showing up. The next time you come through center, let your hip points stay at center. Turn your toes back to the front, your heels to the back, so you're facing a more traditional wide leg forward fold. And then slide your hands on or off your blocks forward. So you're dropping down into a downward facing dog, upper body. Engage your legs, send your hip points back. Wide leg forward, lower body. So reaching forward, reaching back, pressing down, finding some space. Nice. Deep breath in. And out. Notice what's happening with your shoulders. Are your shoulders up by your ears, even though we're reaching forward? What would happen if you pressed into your palms and imagined you can rotate your shoulders out a little bit? And so kind of playing around with the pressing down to find space. When you're ready, press down enough to look forward. Either walk or slide your blocks back in space. I know it's kind of hard if you're on carpet. And then turn your blocks up to the highest height again. We'll take our blocks with us as you turn all the way towards the front of your mat once more, low runner's lunge. Take your time to adjust your stance, adjust your feet. Step your back foot to meet your front foot, Uttanasana, hands on the blocks or on the floor. Inhale, half lift. From your half lift, hands walk to your hips, bend into your knees, sit back, press down in order to rise up, Tadasana. Nice. Inhale, sweep your arms all the way up and overhead. Soft bend to your knees as you exhale, take a twist to the right, reach forward and back. Inhale up to center. Exhale, soft bend, twist to the left. Inhale back to center. Exhale, sweep your arms wide, tailbone back, heart forward, Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, hands onto your shins, your blocks, the floor. Exhale, palms to the ground, big step back with your right foot. Drop your right knee, tuck or untuck your toes. This time, inhale, reach all the way up, low lunge. Exhale, cactus your arms, open your heart. Maybe you lean back a little. Nice. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, hands come back down to the floor or your blocks. Right hand to the floor, left arm sweeps all the way up towards the ceiling. Palm faces out. Press to your bottom hand, lift up, full breath in. And out. One more inhale. Exhale, release your left hand back down to frame your foot. Tuck your back right toes, lift your right knee. This time, we're gonna leave the blocks where they are. Maybe you move it out of the way. Pivot to the long edge of your mat. Right away, bend into your back right knee, Skandasana. Pivot back to the front of your mat, low runner's lunge. Step your back foot to meet your front foot, Uttanasana. Inhale, half lift. Hands find your hips, bend to your knees, sit back, use the strength beneath you, press down, rise, tall, Tadasana. Inhale, arms high. Exhale, soft bend to your knees. This time, take your twist to the left first. Inhale, center. Exhale, twist to the right. Nice. Inhale, center. Exhale, big reach forward and back all the way down, Uttanasana. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, palms to the ground, left foot will lead, step to the back of your mat. Drop your knee, tuck or untuck, press down, rise up, low lunge, inhale. Exhale, cactus your arms, open your heart, maybe you lean back. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, reach forward and down. Nice. Left hand to the floor or a block, right arm reaches forward, up and around, palm faces out. Press down as you lift up for your rotation. Stay here on the breath out. One more inhale. Exhale, right arm reaches forward, around and down. Tuck your back left toes, lift your knee, pivot to the left side as you roll over. Bend into your back left knee. Pivot back to the front of your mat, low runner's lunge. Little different this time. Step your front foot to meet your back foot, high plank. It's a little harder to step over a blanket if you got it there. Then send your hips up and back, downward facing dog. And take a breath or two here to move or to stay in stillness. One more cycle of breath. Come back to a neutral downward facing dog. As you inhale, roll all the way up to your tippy toes. And then let that momentum keep going as you roll forward to a high plank. And there's going to be this pivot point where you feel like you might roll forward. At that point, send your heels back, crown forward. Stay in your high plank for a big breath in. With or without your knees, lower all the way down to belly. Breath out. Untuck your toes. Move anything around you that's in your way. Okay. And then lift your back right leg. So you can kind of lift and imagine you can extend it back a little bit. It really won't go far, but you can imagine that you're lengthening the front of your right hip, and then place your right leg back down. And then lift your left leg. Imagine you can lift and lengthen your left leg back a little, and then place your left leg back down. Press the tops of your feet to the earth. Let your forehead drop and then reach your palms back. Palms will connect down to the earth as well. Before we go anywhere, really press the tops of your feet. Notice how by pressing your feet, parts of your legs might lift. You might notice how your kneecaps lift a little. So just get curious about what happens from pressing your feet down, tops of your feet, in the upper part of your legs. And then same thing with your hands, press your hands down. So again, we're not purposely trying to lift yet. We're just grounding down. What happens in your upper body when you press your hands down? And then if we stayed here, it would kind of get a little more challenging, right? Like I can already feel a little bit of shaking. So now consciously start to press down as you lift your torso. Send your gaze slightly forward anytime. And then you can keep your hands down, or you might lift your hands up. Nice. Big breath in. Big breath out. One more. Exhale, release everything down. Soften the action down, forehead to the mat, or you might turn one cheek to the mat. Option to stay at neutral, maybe you rock your hips a little side to side if that feels good. All right, if your forehead is to one side, bring your forehead or chin back down to your mat. You might play around with that re-extension of your legs. So kind of lift one leg and reach back, lift the other leg and reach back. And then again, start with your feet. Press the tops of your feet down. Notice how that shifts your legs. Press your hands down. Notice what shifts in your upper body. And then from that activation of downward energy, think of lifting forward and up. Maybe you lift your palms back. This time, option to lift your legs back. So then as you lift, the downward energy shifts. So now see where you lift up and how that changes any downward connection. Big breath in. And out. One more inhale. When you're ready, soften everything down, either forehead or chin to the mat, or this time you can take your opposite cheek to the mat. Stay in stillness. You might choose to rock your hips again. If your cheek is to one side, again, come back to your chin or to your forehead. Slide your hands underneath your shoulders and roll over onto your back any way you'd like to arrive. As you find yourself on your back, place a bend into your knees, soles of your feet to the floor. If your blanket's underneath you and it's uncomfortable at all, you can take the time to get that out of the way as well. Take your arms out to a cactus or a T. Palms will face up. Walk your feet about as wide as your mat. And take a deep breath in here. And as you exhale, send your breath out, connect down to what's beneath you.
Press down into both of your feet, scoot your hips slightly to the right, and then place your hips back down. Extend your left leg long. Draw your right knee in towards your chest, and lots of options here. So as we move to this twist, just knowing that if this twist isn't kind of what you want this morning, of course, you can feel free to take whatever you do want. So I'm going to take a block underneath my knee. So I'm going to place a block off of my left hip, and I'm going to start to take my right knee over to the left. So you might choose to do this, placing a block under your knee and ankle, maybe a block underneath your shin. You might choose to extend your right leg, in which case you can slide the block out a little bit further and place it not on the ankle bone itself, but a little bit higher up. And then as your lower body shifted, did your upper body shift? And if so, taking your time to adjust, bringing your arms back to a T or a cactus. Your gaze can stay up. You might choose to turn your gaze somewhere over to the right. And again, options, right? So if this one doesn't work, what does work for you? And finding a place that you can start to settle back in and come back to that downward quality after finding some movement, stirring it up a bit. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And exhale. If your gaze is to the right, softly start to bring your gaze to neutral. If your right leg is extended, option to take your left hand underneath your right thigh. Give yourself a little lift for support, and then bend back into your right knee as you roll to your back once more. Soles of your feet find the floor. And then adjust so your hip points are back at neutral. And take a deep breath in. And a breath out. Press to your feet, send your hips slightly to the left. Extend your right leg long and draw your left knee in. And then same options here. You can take your left knee over to the right. You might bring it onto a block or blocks. You might choose to extend your left leg, in which case you can slide your block down if you're using it. And then as your lower body finds the shift, bring a downward quality into your upper body right now. So give yourself time to adjust. Gaze towards the ceiling, or this time gaze somewhere over your left side. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Once more, bring your gaze back to neutral. This time, if your leg's extended, you might take your right hand underneath your thigh of the left leg. Give yourself a little lift, rebend, and roll over onto your back again. Bend to your knees, both feet find the floor square off through your hips. Take a moment at neutral. And then check in with yourself and see if more movement is required, is wanted, is needed. And if that's the case, allow yourself to move. If constructive rest or shavasana or a seated meditation is required, wanted, or needed, and start to head in that direction. And so take your time again to build the foundation. Give yourself that time to root in, whether that's movement or stillness. And as you come into your final shape or shapes, and cultivating that slow and steady in and out breath. And coming back into the slow and steadiness of your body, the heaviness. It actually makes me think there's a delphinium in the garden that's a little droopy right now because of all the rain. But knowing that when the sun comes out, it's going to stand up tall again. And is actually going to be stronger, more nourished. Even though it had that period of droopiness and kind of falling over a little bit. And so remembering too that we're going to have those moments, it's going to pour, it's going to rain, we're going to droop. And also, it gives us an opportunity to ground down, to root a little stronger, and maybe rise up a little taller when we're ready. So take your time to get heavy, connect down, and to rest and to integrate. And give yourself the next few moments and pause. And slowly start to deepen your breath once more. When you feel ready, slowly start to connect in with your physical structure once more. Maybe some soft movements, expanding and contracting your fingers and toes, or rocking your head side to side. And then in your own time, when you're ready, if you'd like to, rolling over onto one side or the other and eventually making your way to a tall seat. An option to connect your palms together at heart center or onto your heart. And connecting in with your practice, giving yourself a little thank you. And I thank you for your dedication, your willingness to show up, to explore, to get heavy, and for the sake of lightness, expansion, and perhaps a little bit more grounding as we go off into the world. And so thank you for your time, your energy, and your practice, and for sharing it together in the community. Namaste. Thank you very much.